The med bay of the GSV Eternal Meridian was, by galactic standards, a marvel of clinical perfection. 47 species had contributed to its design. The diagnostic beds could detect a Velhari parasite in its larval stage, measure the mineral density of a Kreth warrior's carapace to the nanogram, map the three-dimensional neural lattice of a Quen philosopher's brain without disturbing a single synaptic thread. It had never, in 11 cycles of operation, fallen completely silent. Until now. Cadet Mara Ellison lay on diagnostic bed 7 with her arms folded behind her head, staring at the ceiling with the particular brand of boredom that only humans seemed capable of manufacturing on demand. She was 23 years old by Earth's calendar, 5 feet 6 inches of compact muscle and inconvenient opinions, and she had been waiting for 40 minutes because the intake queue ahead of her had included a Brelin with a fractured exoskeleton and a Quen diplomat experiencing mild atmospheric sickness. She had not complained. She had simply waited, and scrolled through something on her personal datapad, and occasionally hummed to herself in a way that the Velhari nurse at the reception desk had found either charming or deeply unsettling, she hadn't decided which. Dr. Kale Veyron arrived at bed 7 with the particular efficiency of someone who had been a chief medical officer for long enough to find all biological entities vaguely interchangeable. He was Thalessi, tall, silver-skinned, with 4 upper limbs and a pair of eyes that operated on a wider spectrum than human vision. He had treated thousands of patients. He prided himself on his composure. Cadet Ellison, he said, pulling up her intake form on his data slate. Standard entry physical for new Deathworld classified personnel. This should not take long. Great, Mara said, sitting up. I've got a training session at 1400. Dr. Veyron nodded professionally and positioned the diagnostic arch above her, a gleaming half-hoop of sensor equipment that could produce a complete physiological profile in approximately 90 seconds. Around them, the med bay hummed with quiet activity. Nurse Thriel was cataloging medications at the far cabinet. Junior Medic Oshin was updating patient files at a terminal. Lieutenant Commander Perix, the Velhari second-in-command, had stopped by to check on the Brelin patient in bed 3. Everything was normal. The diagnostic arch began its sweep. The first thing it found was her bone density. The readout appeared on Dr. Veyron's data slate: skeletal density, 287% galactic baseline. He blinked. He recalibrated the sensor. The number did not change. The arch is reading your bones as nearly 3 times denser than galactic standard, he said, his professional tone carrying only the faintest tremor. Oh yeah, Mara said, glancing at the readout with mild interest. Earth's got higher gravity than most inhabited worlds. We've been adapting to it for about 4 million years. My skeleton's basically built to handle it. Dr. Veyron made a note. He told himself this was simply a data point. The arch continued. Resting heart rate, 52 BPM. Cardiac output under stress simulation, 8.4 liters per minute. He stared at that second number. A Thalessi athlete at peak exertion produced 6.2 liters per minute. Your heart, he said carefully, is extremely powerful. It's the endurance thing, Mara said, as though explaining why she preferred one brand of nutrition bar over another. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We'd chase prey for hours, sometimes days. Our cardiovascular system is kind of overbuilt for short bursts. We're better at long distances. Days, Dr. Veyron thought. He did not say it aloud. The arch continued. Nurse Thriel had drifted closer, ostensibly to retrieve something from a nearby cabinet, but the cabinet was not near anything she had any professional reason to access. Pain receptor sensitivity, 34% below galactic baseline. Trauma response, cortisol surge and adrenaline spike measured as performance enhancement. Lactic acid processing, 340% faster than standard. Cadet, Dr. Veyron said slowly, your body processes pain as a performance trigger. Does it? Mara tilted her head, genuinely interested. I mean, I knew we had a higher pain threshold, but I didn't know it actually sped us up. It is unusual, he managed. He had treated Kreth warriors, the most physically formidable species in the Confederation. Their pain suppression was legendary, a result of deliberate evolutionary pressure on a world of apex predators. But Kreth didn't process pain into fuel. They simply endured it. This was something different. This was a body that received the signal for damage and responded by accelerating. Junior Medic Oshin had abandoned any pretense of working. He was openly watching the data slate now. Lieutenant Commander Perix had moved away from Bed 3 entirely. Her antennae were raised. The arch continued. Immune response, hyperactive. Pathogen adaptation rate, exceptional. Recorded historical disease survivability, 94% across 12,000 documented pathogens. Your species, Dr. Veyron said, and then stopped, and then started again. Your species has survived contact with 12,000 recorded pathogens. We used to live in the dirt, Mara said cheerfully. Literally. Mud huts. Drinking river water. Sharing space with livestock and rats and whatever else. For a couple 100,000 years. She paused, thinking about it. I guess some things stuck. The arch pinged softly. Final readings incoming. Psychological stress response, elevated cortisol during acute danger, normalized within 4.2 minutes of threat cessation. Baseline stress resilience, 89th percentile of all charted species. Sleep requirement, 7 to 9 hours in 24-hour cycle. Cognitive degradation without sleep, significant but recoverable. Noted, humans are one of few known species capable of voluntary sleep deprivation extension exceeding 72 hours without organ failure. Nutritional flexibility, omnivorous to an extreme degree. Capable of metabolizing substances toxic to 73% of charted species. Body temperature regulation, active. Sweat-based cooling system allows sustained operation in temperatures lethal to most species. Reproductive resilience, high. Lifespan, approximately 80 to 120 years. Active combat capability sustained until approximately 55 to 65 years. The arch chimed once, softly, and went still. The med bay was completely silent. Dr. Veyron stood motionless, looking at his data slate, and for the first time in 11 cycles of practice he did not know what clinical note to enter. He was looking at a creature who had evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill everything on it, and had responded by becoming something that processed damage as fuel, drank poison for breakfast, chased animals for 2 days without stopping, and then took a nap and felt better. And she was lying on his diagnostic bed, arms folded, mildly bored, waiting to get to her 1400 training session. So, Mara said, breaking the silence with the cheerful pragmatism of someone who had absolutely no idea what she'd just done to the room. Everything okay? Normal human stuff? Dr. Veyron looked up from his data slate. He looked at Nurse Thriel, who had gone very still. He looked at Junior Medic Oshin, whose mouth was slightly open. He looked at Lieutenant Commander Perix, who had the expression of someone rapidly revising a series of previously held assumptions. Then he looked back at Mara Ellison, who was already swinging her legs off the diagnostic bed with the casual efficiency of someone who had somewhere to be. Yes, Dr. Veyron said, carefully, deliberately, in the voice of a man choosing his words the way a person chooses their footing on uncertain ground. Standard human physiology. Nothing outside of expected parameters. He tapped his data slate. The report filed itself under Deathworld personnel, standard intake. Mara hopped off the bed, tucked her datapad under her arm, and gave him a small, friendly nod. Great. Thanks, document same time next year? We will schedule a follow-up, he said. She left. Her footsteps were quiet for someone with bones that dense. The med bay remained silent for a long moment after the door slid shut behind her. Then Lieutenant Commander Perix spoke, in a voice that was not quite steady. She said that was normal. Dr. Veyron placed his data slate down on the counter with the careful, deliberate movements of a man who needed something to do with his hands. Yes, he said. For her species. Yes. Another silence. And they are, Perix said slowly, antennae tilting, our allies. Dr. Veyron picked up his data slate again. He had other patients. He was a professional. He had composure. He had 11 cycles of clinical experience across 47 species. Yes, he said, for the third time. He went back to work. But for the rest of the shift, every so often, one of them would glance at the door through which Cadet Mara Ellison had walked, bored, cheerful, dense-boned, poison-tolerant, self-healing, and completely unremarkable by her own estimation, and say nothing, because there was nothing adequate to say. Somewhere on Deck 7, the Deathworld girl was running laps. She was humming to herself.